Welcome to the Candidate Forum hosted by the League of Women Voters of DeKalb County in partnership with WNIJ. My name is Jan Dorner, and I'm from the League of Women Voters of Elmhurst. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for verifying the accuracy of the statements that candidates make in this forum. Questions from the League and community members have been collected before this forum and were screened for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. The candidates have not been provided the questions before this forum. We are not taking live questions tonight. The candidates agreed in the ground rules that no voice, images, or other duplication of the forum may be used by any candidate's representative or campaign in any campaign advertising. This forum is available on two different WNIJ platforms, including Facebook Live. I've been asked to announce that WNIJ reserves the right to mute comments from persons who do not follow the WNIJ social media policy. This forum is among the three candidates seeking the nomination representing the Democrats for the position of the Illinois State Representative for District 76. By participating in this forum, all candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. Each candidate will present a 1-minute introductory statement, the order set alphabetically by last name. Then questions will be asked, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond in alternating order. Closing statements will be 1 minute as well. An electronic timer will be used, and candidates will strictly adhere to the time limits. Candidates, when the timer reaches 0, you may finish your sentence, but then you must stop. Our candidates tonight are Cohen Barnes, Murri Briel, and Carolyn Morris Zasada. So let's start with candidate Barnes with your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. Just want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight. Super excited for the conversation. Also want to thank everyone in attendance. So my name is Cohen Barnes. I'm running for the Illinois State Representative 76 District seat. And ultimately, I have lived in Illinois, and I've lived pretty much in the district as it stands right now my entire life. The only time I ever left Illinois was I served in the U.S. military, proudly, the Army, twice. But ultimately, I've spent my life owning an IT company. So I employ 25 people, know what it's like to make a payroll and do all those things. But when it comes to community service, I chaired a referendum in our community to build a new high school and a new elementary school, bringing equity to all of our students when it came to our facilities. I ran for a school board, and there were 11 people that ran for 4 slots. I was one of those that was chosen. And during my 4 years on the school board, I championed an initiative to put a device in every one of our kiddos' hands. So every student in the DeKalb School District had a device to be able to bring equity to all of them in DeKalb. But I've also spent the last 3 years as mayor of the city of DeKalb. I've created over 1,000 new union construction jobs, over $1 billion of investment, and our property taxes continue to drop year over year over year. And when it comes to public safety as well, we've hired over 20 police officers last year alone, as well as firefighters, and we're building new fire stations. So super excited about tonight.
Thank you. Candidate Briel, your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, League of Women Voters, as well as Northern Illinois Public Radio. You do an amazing forum, and the service of helping voters become better educated is something that I think is wonderful. My name is Murri Briel, and I'm running for the Democratic primary in the 76th House District. I was born and raised in Ottawa, Illinois. I attended Illinois State University, entered the corporate world, hated it, got married, had 3 children, and spent the rest of my life in service. For the last year and a half, I was the representative, as current representative Lance Yadnock's chief of staff, where I worked with individuals all across this district, lobbying groups, manufacturing, industry, in every part of the district, in every aspect, helping to navigate the state, helping to write or fix legislation, helping folks address the issues that were important to them. I'd love for you to find more out about me. You can go to murribriel.com. And I hope to have your vote on March 19th in the Democratic primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada, your opening statement.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters and to WNIJ for hosting this, and to our viewers for being here. Thank you all so much. I'm Carolyn Zasada. I'm running for state rep in Illinois' 76th district. I'm a former Marine, I'm a mother, I'm a nonprofit founder, and now I work as a realtor. And I've served for 5 years on DeKalb City Council. As a Marine, I served for 11 years on active duty and 2 in the reserves. I served as a combat engineer first and later shifted gears and became a linguist. I exited the service to stay home with my children and served in the reserves in Peoria. At the same time, I founded a nonprofit that distributed free clothing to children in need. It operated for about 7 years under my leadership, and we served thousands of families over that time. After 2016, I felt the call to get involved in local government and support the community that way. I went back to school, earned my degree in economics at NIU, and by then I was serving on DeKalb City Council and realized how important what I was doing was. And so I earned my master's in public policy and administration. Now I've been serving on the council for about 5 years, and I serve on the Lieutenant Governor's Military and Economic Development Committee and have been there for a couple of years.
Thank you.
So you can find out more at carolynforstaterep.com. And thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. The first question will go to candidate Briel. What is your opinion on the Safety Act as amended? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe that the Safety Act did some great things for our communities as well as for safety. However, I do think that there are still some issues that need to be addressed, even with the amendment. I've heard from many folks who are dispatchers, police officers, social workers, court, circuit clerks, who are all feeling as if things have been, they're inundated without the support they need in order to execute the legislation the way it was intended. I also believe that there's some clarifications that need to occur in some of the offenses for which penalties for staying get clarified and then disseminated. I think one of the things we see with a lot of legislation is that it applies in certain areas of the state, but creates challenges in other areas regardless, because we're a very diverse community. So I think that the best part is being able to go back and take a look at things that aren't working, listening to the stakeholders, the folks dealing with this on a daily basis, and then be able to make some more tweaks.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada, same question.
Thank you. So the Safety Act is far from perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. It's lowered the number of people who are incarcerated based on their socioeconomic status, which is a success. Crime has also marginally gone down recently, although we're not near the level of public safety that should be our goal. I would work to hire more police officers, as we have in the city of DeKalb, and expand law enforcement resources so courts have the facts necessary to make the right decision. I've heard claims that the act lets violent criminals roam free, but in cases of serious or violent offenses, the judge is able to refuse bail under any condition. Sorry, I'm not following the timer very well. I expected a separate timer. I apologize. But poor mental health is also closely tied to criminal activity, and police officers are often stuck doing the work of mental health professionals. So I also support making sure we have more social workers in our police departments as well.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes.
The Safety Act was brought forth out of a specific and ultimately a great need. When we think of all the people in our system, essentially, that are from a marginalized population, when you look at the systemic racism that we have within the state of Illinois and in our judicial system and in the way we were policing, I thought it was a great first step going forward. But like the heart everyone had and the spirit of the Safety Act was there, and there was need for great change. The first revision, as those phases rolled out, it became apparent that the way the legislation was written, that there were going to be challenges, as well as when you talk to boots in the ground, which we did in the city of DeKalb, to our officers, and enforcing some of the language and the lack of clarity that there was. And I know the state's attorneys. I'm on the board of directors for the Illinois Municipal League, and we heard from all the state's attorneys and chiefs of police about problems within the language itself. The spirit was there. We wanted to make that change, but more clarification was needed. And I think it's wonderful that our state legislator has listened to the population, has listened to all of our stakeholders, and amendments and changes keep going forward with the Safety Act in order to refine it in a way where its original intent can be executed at the highest level.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada, you'll be the first one to answer this question. Last year, Illinois passed legislation which protects abortion providers and gender-affirming care providers, as well as out-of-state patients, from the reach of out-of-state investigations and legal actions. Do you support or oppose these actions, and why?
Yes, I absolutely support these actions. I'm thrilled to see Illinois take a strong stand and to put us in a position where we can support the surrounding states and perhaps even farther, where people don't have access to reproductive care and abortion as needed, especially for health reasons. So I am a big supporter of this. I was looking at some of the details of the act and was thrilled to see that one of the opportunities that they captured was allowing doctors and nurses who were licensed outside of the state to work in Illinois on a 2-year provisional license. And I thought that was really an excellent choice to capture that opportunity to support our surrounding communities, recognizing that we are going to be in a position where we have to take on supporting women in surrounding states for these reasons.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes.
Yeah, absolute supporter. I think you're referring to House Bill 4664, and ultimately, the state of Illinois has made it abundantly clear that we are going to always protect our women's right to choose. And more legislation keeps getting put in place, not just to protect that right, but also all the healthcare providers that are out there to make sure that they can practice what is legal in the state of Illinois without fear of retribution within the state itself. But then also some of that act really talked about other states can't implement or overreach, I would say, to the healthcare providers that we have in the state of Illinois outside of our borders and negatively impact them to be able to practice medicine going forward. So it's wonderful when we think of, and I can't remember, there was the House Bill 40, I think it was, when Roe v. Wade got overturned, and now ultimately we made sure that the state of Illinois will always allow abortion, will always protect that right for women to choose. I see it constantly, and I'm really proud to be an Illinoisan to see our state legislature constantly make sure that that particular right, despite what's happening on the national level, is protected. Our women are protected, and the healthcare providers that we have are protected as well.
Thank you. Candidate Briel.
Yes, I support the Illinois state legislature's advancements toward protecting reproductive choice, as well as gender-affirming care. I support the legislation fully. But I do want to point something out. It's not settled in Illinois. We currently have cases pending at the Supreme Court level, and those cases can change and adapt what we do at the state level unless The right to choose is codified in our Constitution. If we do not take that step, we're on the table. I can't tell you how many times I heard over and over again, oh, Roe v. Wade is the law of the land. They'll never overturn Roe v. Wade. Why are we even doing? I believe you were referring to HB 40, which I was involved in helping pass. And yeah, that's great. The trigger law is not there. But if the Supreme Court rules that methylprednisolone is no longer available, or anything that relates to the federal, we end up losing our rights. So we need a constitutional amendment protecting a woman's right to choose. We need to be stronger on that and guarantee that Illinois knows women are sentient beings, and we appreciate them.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes, would you support updating Illinois voting statutes to require that ballots be finalized, including legal challenges to candidates, before ballots are printed so that early voting and mail-in ballots are accurate? Please explain why or why not.
There was a lot in there. I'm not quite following. Can you just repeat one more time for me?
Sure. Would you support updating Illinois voting statutes to require that ballots be finalized, including legal challenges to candidates, before ballots are printed so that early voting and mail-in ballots are accurate? Please
100%.
Yep.
Gotcha. 100%. When it comes to, early voting, absentee ballots, we have to make the ability for everyone in our state, in our nation, to be able to have access to have their voice heard. And the way our country does it is in the form of a vote. For me, anything that restricts, inhibits, limits, makes it more difficult for anyone to be able to cast their vote, I would always be in opposition of. As a veteran of the U.S. Army, I mean, this is one of the core things that we defend that's one of the core things that we defend. This is one of the core ways that we define what it is to be American. So again, when it comes to anything that is brought forward that can limit or inhibit or restrict or make it difficult for anyone to be able to cast their vote and give their voice on who they want to represent them, I would absolutely oppose that. I'm always in support of expanding voter rights and expanding accessibility of people being able to vote.
Thank you. Candidate Briel.
I am 100% in favor of that. In fact, prior to leaving the representative's office, I was working on drafting legislation, which we have put together, that changes some of the time frames of being able to have the certifications completed to ensure that the ballots are complete. And that covers a couple of things involving, not only the clerks, because once it gets into the justice system, things get a little sticky. It's kind of interesting because it seems like something so simple, but it does get a bit complicated. But you are very right. And I think it's important. Our ballots need to be finalized before early voting and vote by mail starts. And they need to be assured that your vote counts. And I can say recently, I have a whole new appreciation for the challenge process. And it's given me some great incentive and some really good inside perspective on what we can do to improve the whole election process. So I'm looking forward to working on it.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada.
Yes, so I would agree. Ballots need to be finalized in advance of early voting and vote by mail. Yes, it certainly muddles the process and can harm other candidates as well. I'm also a proponent of ranked choice voting. So I think there are lots of things we can do to improve our voting system. And much like Murri alluded to, there are lots of things in our systems that are wrong and not quite working as well as they can be for our electorate. So we need to make sure we're updating things and changing the timelines and having our justice system work faster to make it more fair and to ensure that people are getting to elect who they want in office.
Thank you. Candidate Briel. In this era of intense partisanship, when elected officials are expected to fall in line with their party's demands, how will you handle an issue where your own ideology and experience differs from your party's expectations?
That's such an important question. I think the key is understanding who you are as a person and who you represent. The most important thing are the people of the 76, the constituents, the businesses, the community. And so if the community reaches out, shares their voice, and disagrees with something that is party lines, then I would have to seriously decide and talk to the party and explain to the caucus, because we have lots of different caucuses that all have different interests, that I just can't do it because my constituents won't accept it. The most important thing I've learned is you can have very different opinions many times. And you think you know one thing, but once you've listened to those folks who are the ones that are impacted, you really start to see how important what you do is. So, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Uh-huh. In this era of intense partisanship, when elected officials are expected to fall in line with their party's demands, how will you handle an issue where your own ideology and experience differs from your party's expectations?
So I think I've done a really good job on DeKalb City Council of remaining open-minded, of making sure that I'm respecting ideas that I'm hearing from all parties, from all sides. And when I hear and learn new information, remaining open-minded to not necessarily going fully aligned with what everyone expects. So I try to remain respectful and open-minded at all times. For me, I try to be a uniter rather than a polarizer. I think we're living in really polarizing times, and it's really important that we shift that culture and show people what unity looks like. At the same time, there are a lot of values that need to be adhered to.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes.
Yeah, when it comes to a streak of independence, I think I've proven that with my track record. When we passed the referendum, we passed that with 64% of the vote. That was a $110 million school referendum. The previous three failed, and failed, to be frank, quite miserably. The only way you were going to be able to pass a referendum, especially with that amount of support, was literally to be able to not follow the norm. You're going to have to figure out and listen to everyone and all voices and make sure everyone felt like they were heard in order to be able to pass the referendum. And then when I ran for school board, there were 11 people that ran for 4 slots. I was one of those that got elected, and I got elected because I didn't follow the norm. I was an independent person, an independent thinker, but ultimately I'm there to represent the people, and they believed in me and believed that I would do just that. And I'm proud, and I think most would say that's exactly how I was as a school board member. But then as mayor, I mean, I won with over 62% of the vote. And I won that way because a lot of people knew that I was going to represent them. I wasn't going to represent one particular ideology. I wasn't going to represent any party. I wasn't going to represent a particular faction or someone that contributed to my campaign. They all knew that ultimately, when I was put in office, that I would represent everyone equally, and be able to be their voice when it came to executing on the things we needed to do in public office.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada, what actions will you take as a member of the Illinois State Legislature to ensure the integrity of our elections and the accurate counting of ballots?
The integrity of our elections and the accurate counting of ballots. Well, you know, I think we have a really solid system going right now. Our county clerks and recorder here in DeKalb is our election authority. I think that making sure that there is sufficient oversight and compliance with that oversight from both parties is a key factor of ensuring that things are going well. But I do trust that the elected officials who have been chosen, generally speaking, I believe in the system, and I think it is working successfully and well.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes.
I think every system ultimately is open for improvement, right? I mean, the more we can refine, the more we can improve, whether it's voter turnout, but also the counting of everyone's vote to make sure it's heard, I think is incredibly important. And for me, that's something when I raise my right hand to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That may sound corny to some. To me, I take it absolutely to heart. When it comes to the vote, which is the most important thing as an American that we can ultimately do, which is what's so crushing about voter turnout, right? But ultimately, I will do everything in my power to make sure the integrity of the vote is there. But I do believe our system is phenomenal. I do trust our system. And one thing I will definitely do as our state representative, when we start hearing about the vote was stolen, when we start hearing about ballot stuffing, when we start hearing all that misinformation out there, I will be one of the strongest voices out there defending the system that we have and defending the integrity of the system that we have, because I absolutely at my core believe it. And I will make sure that that voice is heard across the 76th district.
Thank you. Candidate Briel.
So one of the things that's interesting is that each county has their own election authority, and the voting methods can vary based county to county. And one of the things I think we need to do is we need to upgrade technology and standardize those. So many rural communities don't even have access. So County just got electronic voting in some of the areas. We struggle with the Wi-Fi signal of even being able to communicate that information back and forth, or if someone has a registration question. So I think it's really important that we upgrade our technology and standardize it so that all counties across the state can expect the same thing. I also really think that we need to add an enforcement component. What we might not understand is that sometimes different clerks may have different agendas, and we've seen it happen in other counties where they'll close early voting, they'll stop polls, they'll shut it down in the middle of lunch in the busiest time. And right now, we don't really have an enforcement system that says, hey, you can't do that. We say you can't do that, but there's no penalty or punishment for infringing on voters. And I think that's something that we could probably address.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes. What specific measures would you take to make housing more affordable or more available in Illinois?
Boy, that's a great question. And there's so many answers associated with affordable housing. What I will tell you is what I have done as mayor of the city of DeKalb. So I'm a big believer in you need to drive economic development to be able to come to a community. And what that does is it drives tax revenue, drives revenue streams to the taxing bodies. And like I said, in the city of DeKalb, we've had over $1 billion of investment, which has really impacted the amount of revenue every one of our taxing bodies has had. But the important piece is every taxing body, so every school board member, every council person, every mayor has to have as part of the conversation of where is the taxpayer in this conversation? And what we saw in the city of DeKalb over the course of the entire 2023, I called multiple meetings with all the taxing bodies. No one had ever done it, bringing them all together and talk about, let's have a target tax rate in the city of DeKalb that's going to be below 9%. What that ultimately does is individual homeowners pay less in property taxes now, and apartment owners and people that are in apartments, whenever property taxes go up, your rent goes up. So I've worked tirelessly and have been incredibly successful driving the tax rate down in the city of DeKalb, which has helped make the city of DeKalb more affordable. And I look forward to applying those same principles across the 76th.
Candidate Briel.
So housing is a very wide topic. And when we talk about affordable housing, it addresses all different demographics, whether they're seniors or students, whether it's families, veterans. Affordable housing is very important. One of the things I'd like to maybe consider is starting to incentivize alternative forms of affordable housing. So areas in rural communities that have mobile home type parks are now renovating those into tiny home communities where the cost is much less, the burden is much less, and the legislation actually doesn't put a property tax on the facility itself, on the small home itself, much the way they wouldn't put the tax on the individual who parks their mobile home, say, in a parking lot or in a trailer park in a community. So I think those are a couple of options that we might want to explore, but we really do have to look at the root of the problem, and that's how are people going to be able to afford the homes that they need to live in.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada.
So as a realtor, there are certainly a number of things contributing to a lack of affordable housing. Certainly, we need to make sure that real estate taxes are under control and are not cost prohibitive for people. So the National Association of Realtors actually has two specific things that they are touting as ideal incentives to help work on and improve our affordable housing shortage. And those two things are improving zoning. So right now we are in a position where most of our zoning in most places is single family residential. And so it puts us in a position where we can't offer duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes that would allow us to create more affordable housing to allow people to get their foot in the door. That's one thing. The other option that they are suggesting is adding accessory dwelling units. So accessory dwelling units are like your mother-in-law's cottage in the backyard, allowing zoning changes that allow those kind of things so that we can add low density increases to the population. Home ownership is a priority for me because I think that most Americans hold their wealth in their homes, and it's an opportunity for people to build generational wealth.
Thank you. Candidate Briel. Would you pursue legislation that would allow small and family-owned farms to operate competitively in a market dominated by large commercial farms? Why or why not? Please be specific.
So there's a kind of a difference here between conventional farming and commercial farming. Conventional farmers are the ones that own the land, and they do the seed corn and the soybeans and all of that, but it's owned by them. And then there are commercial farms, which are owned by corporations that they rent the land out for farmers to service. So there's another section to this, which are the small sustainable farmers, which I'm so excited about. The USDA, the Department of Natural Resources are giving a lot of grants to folks, particularly military and people who want to relocate and learn agriculture. Sustainable agriculture that is producible in this area for fresh produce, and give them a market that allows them to compete on a level of, say, a Dole. So there are some amazing places. There's an organization in Grand Ridge that's just starting a community growth process with funding. And I think that that's something that we can do to expand the production of locally grown, healthy food while not harming those conventional family farmers.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada.
Can you repeat the question for me real quick?
Mm-hmm. Would you pursue legislation that would allow small and family-owned farms to operate competitively in a market dominated by large commercial farms? Why or why not? Please be specific.
Yes, I would try to support small and family-owned farms. I think sustainable farming is a really important thing. I think that in DeKalb, we have a number of we do have a ton of large farming happening, but we've also have our small time farmers as well. And those small time farmers are offering more sustainable options that are really exciting. So yes, I want to make sure that our small family farms are able to compete with big time farmers, especially when a lot of what those larger farming practices are doing isn't really as considerate to our environment.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes.
You know, I grew up out on the farm in Sheridan. I grew up, it was the Bowens living on their family farm. Here, growing up in DeKalb, grew up with Favors and Halversons and Heinishes. And my whole world was just being around the small family farm. And then, you know, I detasseled as a kid. I volunteered as a kid. Some of you know what that means. Rode, did all those things. And almost every time you're on a local farmer's property, working and making it better, and working with DeKalb Ag to figure out how we can feed the world better, all those things. But at its core, when you look at a small family farm, I mean, they are under attack. And in many ways, it's not just our farming community, all small businesses. And as a small business owner, like I said, I own an IT firm that employs 25 people. It's becoming tougher and tougher to compete against the larger organizations that are out there. So having legislation that would pass to be able to support the small local farmer, absolutely. But what I will say is I have seen over and over and over again, those small local farmers are some of the most creative, adopting newer technology faster than the larger companies. And I've seen them be incredibly successful. So we need to make sure we're aware of them and the challenges that they have, but also applaud our small family farms that are out there and being incredibly successful.
Thank you. Candidate Zasada, let's start with our closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Sure. First, thanks to everyone. Thanks to the League of Women Voters. And thank you to WNIJ for hosting. And thank you all for participating. I am running because I know I can do the most good for the people of this district. The working poor can't get ahead because of the structures we've set up in society. I want to change structures and systems that perpetuate inequality. And that usually starts with economic systems. With my background in economics, I have the understanding of what types of economic tools we need to use to break down and reform things and create equity. There are some economic policies that don't work, like rent control, but tax credits and certain subsidies do. There is a lot of structural change that can be implemented, like a fair tax, like universal free pre-K. The cost of working is prohibitive for some parents, and we're not doing enough good for our children and society's future. These are the things I'm going to change.
Thank you. Candidate Barnes, your closing statement.
So we have, you know, a lot of amazing people that are representing us in Springfield at the legislative level, the Senate level, you know, the commissions that are out there, the committees that are out there. Then we have across the states, mayors and council and school boards. And it's one of the beautiful things about, you know, being in the United States of America is our electoral process, and we have to vote and elect people that were going to represent us and represent us well. I think the differentiator for me, by voting for me and putting me in office, is I've gotten proven leadership, whether on the school board or being mayor of the city of DeKalb. I know exactly what it's like to represent people, but most importantly, I know what it's like to build teamwork. I know what it's like to work with our state legislature. I know what it's like to work with our Illinois Commerce Commission, our Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And ultimately what that means is I know what it's like to create jobs. Jobs are what are going to give people more opportunity to be able to have a better life for themselves. It's going to increase the revenue all the municipalities, all the libraries and the schools have to provide better services and invest in infrastructure and invest in our roads. And what that's going to lead to is you can do that in a fiscally responsible way. And what happens is that creates more jobs and more economic opportunity. And I will do that and do that incredibly well as your representative.
Thank you. And Candidate Briel.
Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. It is amazing. And thank you, League of Women Voters and Northern Illinois Public Radio. This was a great forum and such really intelligent questions. My name is Amy Murri Briel, and I'm running for representative in the 76th House District. You can find out more about me at murribriel.com. It's been a primary season, boy, I tell you, and as it heats up when you go to the polls, I'd like you to remember that this is the Democratic primary election. I've been a Democrat my entire life, from the cradle to now. Everything I have done in my life has supported and moved forward the democratic values that were instilled in me by a farmer mom and a labor dad. I know that I have worked in Springfield. I know what it takes to make the sausage. And I think there's a better way that we can do this. My experience, my understanding makes me an excellent choice to be your next representative in the 76th. Again, Amy Murri Briel, March 19th, or early, as I always do, vote and vote for a Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you. Our time is up for this forum. Your participation as a candidate and as a voter is essential to preserving our freedom and our country. For more information, please visit the nonpartisan website, illinoisvoterguide.org, where the recording of this forum will be posted on each candidate's page. Please remember to vote on or before March 19th. We thank the candidates, the DeKalb League of Women Voters, Voter Service Committee, and WNIJ for organizing this forum. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.